You can access the entire episode now on our website, forbiddenknowledge.news, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. One thing I want to start with is the knowing that you experience when you're amidst these visions and these profound experiences, and how it begins to slowly fade away once you come back into this reality. It starts to become more and more dreamlike every day, and you start to forget those little details. For me, I'm grateful for the experience I had on May the 4th because there was so much material synchromysticism that I could actually reach out and touch and remember that it's going to be with me for the rest of my life. That's going to be something that I will always have the knowing of. But these other experiences that are strictly astral and etheric, it's very difficult to hold on to that knowing that you have once you're there. And like you said, you go back multiple times, and when you're there, you're like, oh, you told me this before. I remember all this before. Everything is perfect. Everything is wonderful. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And then you come back to this density and your bills, and you got to make this payment, and oh, am I going to be able to do this on time? I got to work on this. All the material worries of this world begin to creep back in, and you start to forget how real those experiences were and how important they are, because they're more important than anything in this material reality. It's a reminder of the reason you're here and where you're going, right?
Yeah, and this time really is different for me. I've had so many really profound mystical experiences, and I've even met and talked with God before. And a lot of people will probably be like, yeah, but God, like, yeah, God. I mean, I think people have this weird idea that God is somewhat distant, but as I just explained, God is you and you are God. So God's right here with you, and he always has been, or she, or whatever you want to call it, because I don't care. And so I've had that before, and I've had all of these experiences that do exactly what you said. They do fade, and they do sort of become less, and you never really forget, but it's not as present always, right? And it is easy to get sort of lost again in the material and in the mundane. And, you know, I was shown my life as a timeline, and I saw exactly that. And I've asked my higher self, my guides, my allies this question before, like, why did I seem to have these just profound experiences and then just like fall back down into the drudge and just become regular shitty Lindsey again, right? Like why is that happening? And they showed me that each time I was dropping back in to heal a very specific set of mental constructs, physical ailments, traumas, right? And then once I brought that, and that is what integration really is bringing what you receive up here down into here and now. Here physically, right here, right now. Here it is. It's not out there. I don't have to go back there to get it. It's here, right? And so the universe and your life will plop all sorts of experiences in front of you that are like, here's your opportunity to integrate it. Are you going to do it? Or are you not? And you don't have to. You'll have a million opportunities if you need them. But you also can and say like, no, okay, yes, I do know now that this is the truth. And so I'm going to live in accordance with that. And this time, I have already noticed a handful of things that are completely different for me in my lived experience, just from this one experience. One of them is I've had this lifelong phobia of moths, an actual phobia, not a fear, not just a thing I don't like, but an uncontrollable reaction to moths being near me. In which case, I sometimes try to throw people at the moth, or
oh man, we had
right,
we
like
had
take
a big
them,
in
not
our
me.
room last night. Big.
Oh, dude, those big ones are, and they're beautiful, and I love them. But if they're around me, I uncontrollably just react, right? And this is a problem. So, I've done a lot of work with it, and I've had a lot of growth with it. But since then, moths are flying right into my face, and I'm just like, oh, there was a moth.
Nice.
Not ever. I never, right? So there's just one of many examples of this was a different type of experience and knowing for me, at least, that allowed me, it seems like, to integrate it much more fully and deeply, much more quickly, and bring back a lot more than I ever have before. One of the reasons why and I know it because I experienced and lived it, is because I was able to receive that much love. When I talk about surrender, when I talk about that little piece of me that was holding on, that was like, no, we're not doing this, it's dangerous, right? When that let go, that's love. I allowed just love to just be all there was. No control, no attachment, right? No expectation, and just pure trust and love. And I could never have let that much love in before this moment. And that is exactly why they were like, oh, okay, now you're ready. Now go. And now do the strongest entheogen you can find on the planet. Before then, I would not have been. And in the other experiences of meeting God, each time I can look now and see how obvious it is that the level of interaction I had was exactly what I could handle and nothing more. And so the first time I was still doing crystal meth, I was still, right, like having abusive boyfriends, I was still unhealthy emotionally. And my experience of meeting God was that he was a far, far away in this field. I didn't know it was God at first. He was far away in this field, and I was like, who is that? That seems like somewhere I want to go. Something's happening up there that I like. And so I walked up this field, I got close, and there's this giant table, and it's a cornucopia. All this food is all over it. And it's a giant black man, just dark black sunglasses and a Hawaiian shirt. And he's just cracking up. He is laughing his ass off. And I'm like, what is this? And he's like, what do you mean? This is everything. I have everything. You can have any of it. And I was like, huh, why? Who are you? And he was like, you don't know? And I was like, no. He's like, I'm God. And that was the end of the experience, right? And I'm like, that was as much as I could handle of the pure love that is God, is just looking at him and saying like, what is this? And being curious, and right? I didn't take anything from the table. We didn't have a long conversation. Years and years and years later, I am much better. I'm still not perfect. I'm just starting to really understand my own trauma and really how deep it is and how much there is, and right. But I've healed a lot. I've healed enough to have healthy relationships and not be doing a bunch of drugs all the time, et cetera, et cetera. And I have an experience in which I meet God. God, like in my head, apparently at this point was Gandalf. So back then it was like large black guy with a Hawaiian shirt, and this time it was Gandalf the wizard. So, that's how God was appearing to me in this case. But God was also just a cloud of pure light and love. And so I felt like I was being held like a baby by Gandalf, God, but also that all this light and love that was just flowing around me was also holding me and was also God. And so I was just talking to the nebulous love cloud, and I was just being held. And I was just like, oh, okay, well, so you're God. So tell me about this. And now tell me about this. And now what about this? And I was just grilling God about any random question that came into my head. And it was so much fun. I was having fun. I was being held. I was receiving that much love that I could just be held and I could just trust and have this conversation. But that's nowhere near where I received in this Bufo experience, where not only did I come face to face with God, but then I became one with God. Right? So you can see like the progression, and it's not like at any time God was like, well, we'll only give her this much. That's all she deserves. No, God every time was like, I'm here. Anything you want, you got it. He told me that the first time we met, right? But that was all I could take. I could not handle more love than that. And I really get it now. And I see everybody in that light, as everybody is receiving exactly as much love as they will let themselves receive, and no more.
Yes, I love that. And when you're talking about how you were aware that this is God and you are indeed having these conversations with your understanding of Source, or God is, and I've realized that I've also been having this conversation with this powerful source of love my entire life, and I've understood it as my conscious. As a small child, this voice that says, no, don't touch that, that's hot, or stay away from that, or just this voice that you consider to be the voice of reason kind of speaking up every once in a while. Once you start your journey